Hi, folks. Florida Man here. Today, I'm bringing you a diplomacy commentary on a game that I played on a global-sized variant map. That map being the Armistice diplomacy map, alpha variant. We played it on the Apricot server. It's on Discord right now if you want to take a look at it. I don't know if they're going to close it down or what, but in any case, I'm going to be going over the game along with King of Prussia, who also played with me, so I hope you will enjoy. This was the Armistice diplomacy map. Game began in 1919. I played as the great nation of Mexico, whereas my guest here, King of Prussia, who's kindly joined us today, played as Poland.
Yes, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
It's a pleasure having you. What were your initial thoughts on the country you were assigned to play?
So before the game, I'd been very transparent that I quite wanted Red Russia. That seemed like a very powerful position to use, and I really wanted it. And I had actually forgotten before the game that Poland was a nation that I had written down in my list of nation preferences. So it was a little bit of a surprise to get it. It was probably like fifth on my list or something. But when I got it, my analysis of the position is that I want to grow as quickly as possible because I'm surrounded by a bunch of people and I kind of need to be strong so that I don't look like an easy target. And I also want to kill one of my neighbors.
Always got to do that.
And of my neighbors, I mean Germany, Red Russia, or Romania. Sweden is like kind of a neighbor, but you can't really project power up there as Poland. So it's just not really worth it until later in the game, I don't think.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
How are you feeling over in Mexico?
I also, like you, had Red Russia as one of my top preferences on the list. I also had White Russia up there because I think the Russian Civil War is kind of fascinating. But I put Mexico near the top of the list because my wife's family is Mexican, and I always kind of enjoyed America's southern neighbor. But so I was kind of excited to play Mexico on this map. The only thing that I was kind of concerned about is looking up above me, you see there's a very large blue patch that seems kind of...
Wonder what that could be.
Kind of dangerous, potentially hostile. I recall from my reading of Mexican history that it has occasionally posed a bit of a threat.
I couldn't imagine that big blue thing ever fighting Mexico. That would be absurd.
And I noticed it happened to outnumber me, too. So I was a little bit nervous to start. But this is such an exciting map, so I was pretty excited in any case about all the various attributes.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we go to the spring 1919 spring, and we'll address my thinking in the first season, and then we'll go to the other side of the map, and we can go and talk about Europe.
Sounds good.
So, in the first year, what I was trying to do was, I was basically thinking I needed to go after the United States early on. And although I was keeping my options open, so you see there's a coordinated bounce in Austin, I was really thinking United States will be my first target. Britain can help me. Britain's not so big in this region as to be a threat to me in the long run if I get Britain's help against the United States. And so that's why you see me moving up towards Southern California here, which is not something that's agreed on with the United States.
I would imagine not.
No. And as for my conversations with other players, it mostly boiled down to South America, where Peru was negotiating with me about all these islands in the Pacific, and I was just trying to have a little bit of a rapport with Argentina and Brazil. The only other person communicating with me was France, who was basically trying to make me suspicious of Britain, if I remember right.
Yeah, France and Britain in this game, in the early game, were fascinating.
Say that again.
Yeah.
Well, looking to your side of the map, what was going on in Poland and in your space?
Yeah, so there was a lot of intrigue, because initially I know the German player, and before the game I knew that trusting him was a bad idea. you'll see how that turns out for me later, I suppose. So my first plan was to work with Sweden to just immediately strike a death blow to Germany, take Berlin in fall of the first year. To that end, I had agreed to amicable relations and divisions of centers with Red Russia and Romania, and I was talking to Sweden an awful lot. But I didn't think that Sweden was committed enough to the alliance initially. It was hard to say exactly why. It's been a while, but it just didn't seem like he was really committed to the idea of killing Germany and then going west and just conquering all of Europe, which would be the natural progression for our alliance, I feel. And Germany was convincing enough to dissuade me from attacking him. It also helped that about an hour and a half before the move deadline, he had found out from one source or another that I was planning to attack him in Sweden, which also added to my distrust of Sweden at the time. So I ended up making moves that weren't overtly hostile to any neighbor, although they were like slightly hostile to Sweden, depending on if I can get Red Russia to help me into Tallinn, which is Estonia up there. But other than that, pretty amicable moves for all of my neighbors.
Yeah, that kind of sounds like you were in a tough spot there and didn't really have a whole lot in terms of what you could do that would be safe. I mean, do you have an idea of other suspects besides Sweden who could have leaked that you were planning to attack Germany with Sweden?
I didn't really ever tell anybody that was my plan. I just kind of was quite vague. I know that the initial Argentine player has a tendency for rumor making and throwing things around. And there's a potential, I haven't extensively delved my comms with Romania, but if there were a player who could have figured that out and then told Germany, Romania maybe could have. But apart from that, I didn't really talk to many people. So it's possible that Sweden had said that they were thinking about it to somebody else, and then it got to Germany that way, not directly. But by the way, the fact that it did get out like that kind of put me off the alliance.
Yeah, it sounds like something or someone just sabotaged your alliance with Sweden really quickly. Anything else you think super noteworthy about the way that Spring 1919 went here?
Yeah, so there was a lot of chit-chat about Italy wanting to murder Greece right off the bat, which turned out to be well-founded, I'm pretty sure, later on, with how things unfolded. And there was, I was talking to Germany a lot as well, of course, pledging my eternal friendship to him from the start of the game, because what else are you going to do? And from what I got from him was that the West was chaotic, like an extremely chaotic Western Europe, where it wasn't really clear how Britain and France and to some extent the Netherlands were going to behave towards one another, which wasn't particularly relevant to me early on, but I found very funny to listen to.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it was not a settled early game. Also, I wasn't sure what the two Russias were going to be doing, but after the first year, it became clear that either it was going to be cooperation or it was going to be Red Russia immediately driving the knife in.
White Russia. Gotta watch out for your neighbor there.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised at all that Italy would want to immediately consume Greece, by the way, because look at the way this map is constructed. Italy has units below Greece, to the west of Greece, and to the east of Greece.
Yeah, it's not a good position to be Greece in.
Not unless Italy makes a lot of enemies.
Or unless Italy is inexplicably friendly.
Yeah, that's true. That would help quite a bit.
Yep.
But we will see if that ends up being the case. Just briefly, there's a lot of colonial action going on in Africa. We see that, that Portugal has its fair share of colonies, Britain has its colonies here and here, Italy has a share, France, and even Germany and the United States getting into the action in these respective corners. But of course, too early to say who's going to dominate Africa.
Yeah.
And in the East, I don't think we can say much noteworthy happening yet. We have the two Chinas here, but hard to say which China would dominate, if any, at this point. And the only other thing I would say is I love the Japanese position here.
Yeah.
Because, not to downplay the difficulty of any of these powers, but Japan has only really China as neighbors. And
as long as Japan stays cordial with White Russia, I think they're okay in this position.
Exactly. Yeah. It's only like both of the Chinas or White Russia that could even attack Japan, basically.
Yeah.
So we will see what happens there as well. Going to fall. And here I am in the Americas. I'm just kind of playing it safe this year, getting my builds where I can. So I snag Hawaii, I hold in Havana, I keep, I believe this is Belize. And so
it's like Guatemala, I think.
Yeah, you're probably right. I can't really.
The code is quite small.
Magnified it. Yeah. So I'm just trying to take the neutrals that are closest to me, that are easiest for me to take and retain, and avoid anyone having any complaints about me doing anything. Although, as you can probably tell, I am maintaining a somewhat aggressive posture toward the United States.
Yeah, you kind of just outmaneuver him with your units. Always nice to see.
Yeah, it's at the same time that he is theoretically going to attack Britain. I mean, he and Britain are actually at odds, so that seems like a good opportunity for me to pick a winner and make sure that the loser goes down hard.
Yep.
So we'll see how that goes for me. In South America, nothing super crazy happening yet. They're also just kind of getting neutrals for the most part, although we do see that Brazil and Peru are working together a little bit to prevent Dutch from getting any builds there.
Yeah.
And France also joining in, jumping on Dutch.
Yeah, I remember there was some sort of a coalition against the Netherlands brewing at this point in the game, where Britain and France put aside their differences and decided to kill the Netherlands, and I wasn't entirely sure why either of them decided to do that, but they did.
That does sound kind of utterly pointless. The Netherlands is, I mean, not a non-entity, but not a great power in this particular map, really.
Yeah, it feels like if I was either France or Britain, I would say, hey, other power wants to attack you, so let's work together, and then we can, have growth or whatever. But
yeah, especially if I was France. Honestly, I can understand why Britain might want to wipe out the Netherlands, if only to get those Netherlands home centers and have some more security around my island.
Or even just to prevent anyone from being able to build there.
Yeah, because that's a dangerous area for Britain, and Netherlands is right next to the North Sea with one of their fleets.
Yes. Also, there's some minor stabbing of Portugal going on by Britain, taking Lisbon away from them.
Oh yeah, the capital. Man, that is a bad place to be if you're Britain, or if you're Portugal.
Yeah.
So for members of the audience, in this variant, you have to have your capital in order to win, which means that Britain, if Portugal does not restore its capital to its own possession, Britain has just single-handedly prevented a Portuguese victory.
Yeah. Over in Europe, I worked together with Red Russia to make sure that I got the build by taking Tallinn instead of Sweden, which was a stab of a commitment I made to Sweden, but, actually, it wasn't quite a stab because I didn't tell Sweden I was going to give him Tallinn. I just kind of was like, who knows why my unit is in Riga and in Königsberg. He saw it coming, but there wasn't anything he could do about it. And I move into Minsk in the east, and I just sit in Prague in the south, and I get 4 builds here, which makes me feel pretty good about the position. But I wasn't in I'm not sure if it was a good position or just an okay position based on the fact that none of my neighbors were actually suffering in any meaningful way.
I was going to say, it sounds like you kind of succeeded with your opening, but strategically you ended up doing the thing that you told yourself you shouldn't do. Of the first person you've antagonized is Sweden, who you were planning to leave for later.
Yeah.
Which, depending on who you antagonize, antagonizing somebody early on is always necessary. So sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. It's just
whether you can trust your allies or not, I guess, is one of the important things here.
So I guess your ally right now is Red Russia.
Red Russia and Germany are the 2 nations I'm trying to keep by my side.
That makes sense. And what's How are things between you and Romania?
Well, I'm telling Romania that I think we're natural allies and that we could work together into the end game and both win together. And at the same time, I'm preparing to build like 4 armies and just kill him next year. Because I also know the player in Romania, and I also do not trust him either, along with Germany. So
it's a shame you didn't have any trustworthy neighbors like me in this game. It would have been so much easier for you.
I think there's value to having neighbors that you can look at and say, well, I think they'd only stab me for a solo. Mm-hmm.
that is a great value in my mind as well, because at least then you sort of get an idea of when to watch your back.
Yeah.
Anything else you see noteworthy in fall 1919?
Red Russia and White Russia are clearly cooperating. Persia's just getting murdered by all of his neighbors, I think, at this point, if I'm reading this correctly.
I agree. Persia is under attack. Is in the middle of combat with Red Russia, with Britain, and
I think Saudi Arabia. Let me see.
Also White Russia.
Actually, Saudi Arabia is not fighting them yet.
Not Saudi Arabia yet, but I'm sure in due time, the Persians will tick off that one remaining neighbor.
Yep. In Asia, let's see. In Asia, it appears that Yellow China is allied to Japan, and that there is some sort of fighting going on between Purple China and Yellow China, but it's not really clear.
Yes, I do see that. It's mostly defensive on the part of Purple China, who's self-bouncing rather than advancing. But Yellow China clearly trying to advance into Purple China.
Yeah.
So Yellow China started the war.
We'll see how it turns out for them.
Yes. At the same time, Yellow China is being attacked by White Russia, so Yellow China maybe did not choose the moment correctly.
Yeah, I think that with the moves White Russia made towards Japan early on, you probably should realize as Yellow China that Russia has some intention to attack you. But then again, there's not really much you can do about it in this position either way.
That's true. I don't think that the China position, that the Yellow China position is very strong to start with, honestly.
You probably have to offer Russia support into that Manchurian center here. I think that's what you have to do.
That might make sense. I think, yeah, what White Russia and Yellow China need to do here maybe is to make common cause against Japan. Because Japan is actually, on this map, I think, really formidable from an early stage. And also very difficult for anyone to attack except for the two Chinas and White Russia.
Yeah, I think if Japan gets like a 1 year to get set and build some fleets, then they're just going to be untouchable by a lot of people.
Yeah, I think so.
So it's important that their neighbors cooperate correctly and limit Japan's power, rather than fighting amongst themselves.
And instead, Japan is being allowed to expand toward those American-controlled islands.
Yes.
And of course, the American colonies in Southeast Asia in this game are few enough that USA just looks like a tasty snack.
Yeah, it's just, unless America has alliances with Mexico and Britain, I don't think there's any type of power they can project over here. Unless it would change in the future and they'd get both of the Filipino centers and it would be a fleet down near Papua New Guinea instead of an army.
Yeah, they'd need to focus in this region if they want to project power there. They'd need to basically be a Pacific United States that doesn't concern themselves very much with South America and has no conflict with Mexico, which, as you have seen, is probably not the case.
Yeah, may not be a worthwhile strategy.
Might not quite be workable this time.
You don't say.
Going on to the build phase, we see that the United States is kind of fairly bristling with builds, and at least has some units to defend itself for right now. You got a fleet in Washington, a couple of units up here by Canada, and a couple more fleets down in the south, so that the United States can hold its own against both Mexico and Britain, unfortunately. And at the same time, I, as Mexico, am getting a couple of fleets and just an army right next to the United States, so that if there was any doubt, my intentions are obvious.
Just to be sure.
At the same time, there is in South America what looks like preparations for a big internal war. Argentina building armies and also a couple fleets, but Brazil building a fleet for some reason.
This looks like it could have been a South American triple, but it's unclear.
That is true. That is a possibility.
Actually, I think this is a South American triple.
I don't know. I don't trust it.
Although Peru's army build, yeah, that army build by Peru.
Yeah, two armies in. Well, the one army it couldn't have been a fleet because of where it is, but yeah, the other army isn't necessary unless we're fighting in South America. I think Brazil believes that there is a South American triple, though.
Yeah, but Brazil also did not get off to a very good start at all.
No, man, it's a bad start for Brazil. I don't quite know how that happened.
Neither do I.
I think it was poor negotiations, to be honest. I'm familiar with the dynamics down there, and I know that Argentina was kind of talking everybody's ear off. It is a player who can be very demanding, but also very kind of charming and persuasive, but is absolutely greedy. And so, not surprising to me that Argentina is expanding quickly.
Yeah,
Peru's in a great position to expand quickly, and Brazil is the kind of odd man out who maybe also could have made some better decisions for expanding quickly.
Yeah.
Going over to your side of the map, I see you did indeed get 3 armies plus 1 fleet.
Yep. Fleet is intended for killing Sweden, and my thinking here is that if I want Germany to actually stick with me here, I'm going to need to give him something to shoot at that's not me. And I'm going to want him to building a few extra fleets, because that way he'll have some incentive to go fight like Britain and the Netherlands instead of me.
Sorry.
Yeah, so what we planned here, I agreed to this at this point, was that he build Army Berlin and Fleet Hamburg to get Sweden a little bit off his guard, and then Army Berlin would end up being convoyed into Scandinavia. And because that would be the intention with Army Hamburg in this plan anyways, and that way we might catch Sweden a little bit off guard here.
Delicious.
Meanwhile, I'm also planning for those 3 armies to just go south immediately and strike at the heart of Romania and see if I can't cut him down before he gets any ideas about me or talking to Germany and Red Russia. And then they all get ideas about me.
That makes sense. You got to avoid giving people ideas. And Red Russia is always going to be worrying in this position for any Poland player, I think, because this particular Red Russia had so many opportunities to expand, and now he has all these new armies right on your border.
Yeah.
Not even necessarily because there's any aggressive plan against you, but because that's just the nature of what the Red Russia position looks like.
He's just able to build all the armies he wants.
It's an amazing thing. The Soviet Union is so strong.
Yes, very strong.
Any other noteworthy build decisions you can see here?
I think Russia building in, I think Yaroslavl, or no, that's Vladimir instead of Kazan, is, I'd say, expected, but still kind of concerning for me in the long term. I was hoping Romania would build a fleet in Bessarabia instead of an army. And I forgot to mention this, I did bounce him in fall. I almost forgot about this. I bounced him out of Budapest with Prague. Which, in hindsight, it might have been better to maintain the element of surprise in the attack, but hard to say. And then, apart from that, France just didn't build in his mainland, which shows a lot of trust towards his neighbors. And
all the same trust that a pig has for the farmer.
Yes. And other than that, I don't have much comment on the builds because little regional Poland only had 4 neighbors the whole game.
Yeah, I understand. I also don't have very much to say about these builds. It is interesting to see who's investing what in Africa, but it's kind of, they're all kind of keeping parity with each other. I mean, Britain and Italy are technically investing slightly more in building in Africa than Portugal is, but Germany's investing just as much as them. France is investing just as much as them. It's a very evenly matched arms race there.
Yeah, I'll say, actually, one build I do have a little bit to comment on. was White Russia building fleet in Rostov did give me a little bit of hope they were going to go fight Romania as well, and that would be good for me. So, good signs. Of course, the fact that it was a fleet there and not an army meant that if Red Russia came knocking against them, they wouldn't be able to do much.
Very unfortunate.
Yeah.
Going to the next spring, we see now my attack on the United States is in, well, how to put this? The attack has reversed directions. I decided to change my mind and start attacking Britain instead. I was just talking to other people and getting this idea that Britain was going to get too powerful, and also the United States was looking like it would take a long time to be defeated because of all those new units that he got in the first year. And so as 1920 rolls around, I am looking for the opportunity to change sides because I want to remain flexible as much as possible and not get into a position where I'm fighting a power that's larger than me to the north and possibly one of these southern powers. In particular, I am worried about those Peruvian fleets. I'm worried about that possibility that there really is a South American triple, or at least that there's some situation going on that would allow Peru to come and attack me from the south. So I'm just trying to find a way to end my fight with the United States and switch to fighting the much smaller and weaker British power in that region.
Yeah.
We'll see how well that works.
Best of luck on that one.
Yeah. Thanks. At the same time, Peru is actually moving towards me a little bit. Those fleets are at least moving north, so I'm not really happy about that. I'm not super surprised, and you see that I'm also kind of moving in Peru's direction. I think of this as more of proactive self-defense rather than any kind of an aggressive war. I know I can't do much to Peru right now. I'm just trying to prevent him from doing much to me.
Yes.
At the same time, Peru is seemingly going after Brazil now, so putting the lie to this idea that they were all going to hold hands and sing Kumbaya, and Argentina doing the same, going after Brazil as well. So
this looks like a dead Brazil.
Yeah, it looks like a very dead Brazil because, two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner.
I wonder what they're going to eat.
Going to your side of the map, what is spectacular there?
Yes, so over here I am immediately beginning my attack on Romania, which is also coordinated a little bit with Red Russia. He's moving down towards Romania, although we'll see if that lasts. And again, Sweden as well, although he's outpowered over there by Swedish fleets. And I am readjusting where my fleets are positioned to give us a shot at getting that convoy across. Germany is supporting himself into the Baltic Sea, and we're generally trying to attack Sweden together. And he's also providing me a little bit of support against Romania, which is useful.
Sounds
moderately.
Sorry?
I said moderately.
Sounds like things are going about as well as could be expected for what your war plans were.
Yep.
Elsewhere, I would note that there's some weird entanglement going on with Portugal, Britain, and France now.
Yeah, I think Portugal's definitely hostile to Britain, and France is probably hostile to Britain, but and France might be hostile to Portugal, but yeah, they are. Okay. So it looks like France and Britain want to kill Portugal at this point, from what I'm looking at these movements.
Well, Britain is in a good position to attack France if that isn't the case. So France had better hope that holds, given that the French homeland remains empty.
Yeah.
But I can easily see it being to Britain's advantage to continue an alliance with France long term here, because they have a lot of areas in common, and they are two of the largest powers on this map, if not the largest. So their combination would be very difficult to defeat.
Yes. And with a well-timed stab, they could certainly come out on top.
I think so. I think that would probably be a good recipe for a British solo. going to to Asia generally, I think it's pretty interesting what's going on with Persia, Red Russia, and Britain. It looks to me as if Britain is continuing to attack Persia. Red Russia is starting to move toward India, and at the same time, Persia is also attacking Red Russia.
Yeah. Chaotic.
A bit. I think this is the first hint that I'm seeing that British alliances and or Red Russian alliances might not be entirely stable.
Yeah. That is certainly what it looks like.
Going to the Far East, I think the most noteworthy thing is just love the way that pink looks, just continuing to expand outwards.
Yeah.
Like creeping like a vine.
And Yellow China is being actively partitioned at this point.
Yeah, Yellow China really shouldn't have started a fight with Purple China until Yellow China knew what was going on with White Russia and Japan. But it's you have to make bold decisions, and if you don't make the right call early on, you can get killed right away.
Yep.
Look into the fall, we see that I am also making some bold decisions that might not necessarily be correct. And that includes that I've given up Havana in order to take Jamaica from Britain, but now it's looking like Britain is going to retake Jamaica, and at the same time I'm not going to retake Havana right now. So It's just a net loss for me. I mean, I'm taking a neutral center over here, so it's not actually a loss, but it's a net loss relative to Britain. And not only that, but having made this enemy, I'm now going to need to rely on my new ally, the United States, in order to actually be able to fight effectively, because I still don't have much of an armada, and I didn't get any builds from this stab.
Yeah.
So, not a great season for me. At the same time, to the south, we see that Brazil is, still being invaded to some degree, but also Argentina had moved into Peruvian territory for some reason, attacking both Brazil and Peru, because attacking both of your neighbors when you could have instead just partitioned one of them is always a good call.
Yes, although this looks like it may actually be prearranged, because Peru is supporting Argentina into one of his own centers. Maybe he's trying to force quick retreat by a Peruvian unit further into Brazil.
Is that Peru supporting Argentina into one of its own centers, or supporting that Peruvian unit out of Brazil and into the Peruvian center Argentina's trying to take?
Yes, I see now. You're correct.
No, good sir. Can you please tell me what was going on in the fall of this year in your homeland?
Yeah, so in the fall, the fights I was picking with my neighbors really started to unfold. So as you can see, I am giving a little bit of... Okay, so let me actually... This might have been the year where it started to go rather poorly. I have to... it's hard to see with the map not being zoomed in on what Red Russia is doing specifically. I believe this... Yeah, okay, never mind. I can see Minsk now. This is where I started to prosecute my fight with Romania a bit more extremely, and with Sweden. But unfortunately, Russia decides that now is a good moment for a quick little stab, which is something that I had seen as a potential, but I think I got a little bit too hopeful because I didn't play the position quite as realistically as I should have, because I had strongly considered bouncing Minsk instead of moving that unit west of it south. And my failure to play the position realistically and make sure that I was not going to be stabbed too hard came back to bite, because I immediately get knifed by Red Russia. And we don't really make any gains against Sweden whatsoever. Germany's convoy does not succeed.
That's rough. It's a bad situation.
Yes, this was where I was considering that maybe I should have just stuck to the plan and tried to kill Germany immediately, but tough to commit to that immediately off the bat, considering how in the previous version I played in Germany was the winner.
Yeah, that is a difficult thing to commit to then.
Yes. So about here is where I'm going to start losing relevance as Poland. With 3 of my neighbors already fighting me, we'll see when the 4th starts, because that feels inevitable as Poland at this point.
Well, Poland may begin to lose some territory, but it will never lose its place in our hearts.
Exactly.
Elsewhere, I see that Britain continues to go after the United States in Africa, and also at the same time looks to be stabbing France here. So,
yep.
Even though France is supporting Britain now into a United States center, it seems as if the British friendship with France was short-lived.
And it also appears as if the Dutch have gone around the Maginot, as it were, and have arrived in Paris.
Wow, France being so trusting of its neighbors, it turns out, in the fullness of time, may not have been the wisest decision.
Yeah, it looks like trusting perfidious Albion and attacking all of their other neighbors was not the move. Who could have seen that? I mean, how could you have seen this one coming? Then again, I can't really criticize with my trusting of Russia and Germany as Poland. I think that we both France and Poland in this game may have had some uncharacteristic trust for some rather obvious rivals.
Well, I mean, it's hard. Sometimes you eat the bear, sometimes the bear eats you. And there's a saying more particular to diplomacy about it's important to find a good ally, one that will die for you, and then make sure that they do.
Yeah. But, whether by your hand or by your enemies, who can say?
Yeah, that detail is unimportant.
Just that they do die.
Just that they live up to their intentions.
Yes.
Elsewhere, I see that Britain is now working with Persia against Red Russia, which is kind of just another one of those amazing flips that Britain performs throughout this game, and which we've just seen with France.
And Yellow China is not having a very good time.
No, nobody's flipping in that region yet.
He actually looks like he NMR'd here, so has given up on the game.
Yeah, he didn't even defend himself, and this is a bad season for that, because Japan could just walk into an open center, which Japan does.
Yeah, I mean, with proper defense here, losses could have been limited to one center, and then you could try to talk up at least one of your neighbors into being like, you're only going to get one more center out of me, but if you stab the other guy, well.
Instead, we see that, Yellow China is losing 3 centers this season.
Let me see, is it... Okay, yeah, because Japan didn't support Purple China into Shanghai.
No.
So yeah, luckily for them, they're only losing 3 centers. They could have lost 4.
Yeah, it's not a great season for Yellow China. At the same time, White Russia really ought to start worrying about Japan, because this is also Japan convoying onto the mainland, getting another army there.
Yep, and Japan is supporting Russia and getting their armies closer to China because, I mean, obviously, get their armies a little bit. Well, actually, I don't know. I don't know if that's the obvious move to make. You would almost want to bounce them there. Although, if you bounce them, they might build armies and fleets near you and be a nuisance. So, I could see it both ways.
I think Japan's doing a good job of playing people off each other here.
Yeah.
Really working to establish that greater co-prosperity sphere,
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there was some level of cooperation between Japan and Britain in sniping some of America's Pacific possessions.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case either, considering that they are both definitely attacking USA, so they have to talk at some point.
Yeah.
Well, going to the build phase, I see that I got a fleet this year, on the West Coast, which kind of honestly not the best decision on my part, but I was most concerned about Peru at this point, and did not want to be outnumbered in the waters. Was hoping to ultimately push Peru back and start taking some of those islands and Panama from him.
Yeah, and I think any other build choice at this point probably alienates America. Yeah, maybe you can get an East Coast fleet, but I think an East Coast fleet has even less utility than a West Coast fleet at this point. So
that was the other option I was thinking of, because the situation between me and Britain is such that I really want to come down hard on them and quickly expel them from the Caribbean so that I can focus entirely on one front and one enemy.
Yeah.
It's going to be a big problem for me throughout this game. Elsewhere, Peru does indeed get another fleet, as well as another army, because Peru is always angling to go after something in South America. Brazil also gets an army, while Argentina is focusing on fleets. Argentina, though, already has the sufficient land forces to protect all of his interests in South America.
Yes, indeed. I'm moderately impressed that Brazil managed to get a build out of that situation.
Oh yeah, I think it's probably because he was forced to retreat out of something. Or no, actually, it's because he captured Bahamas here.
Yeah, the West Indies, and he didn't lose Venezuela for it.
No. Well, no.
Good on him.
Yeah. Very good for Brazil. Now the question is, who will be fighting against who in South America this season?
Yeah, we will see. So in Europe, I am forced to make a disband. I gained Budapest, but I lost Tallinn and Minsk, so I disbanded my army in Riga. I did that because it didn't really serve much utility anyways. I was guaranteed to lose Riga this coming season no matter what I did. And by keeping my two fleets, I still stood somewhat of a chance of convincing Germany that I was still a worthwhile partner. And if Sweden makes some serious tactical blunder here, I could stand a chance at keeping Germany by my side.
It's an interesting choice. At this point, you have to start making some very difficult decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and elsewhere, I think the only other noteworthy build decisions from my perspective are that, well, first of all, Red Russia is refocusing by building in Asia now.
Yeah, he's got enough armies in Europe.
Yeah. And the other thing is that Germany is building up his forces in Africa.
Yep.
Going to the spring, I believe this is spring 1921.
Yep.
We see that I am flipping again. I switched sides again. It's, in retrospect, I think I probably shouldn't have switched sides so many times in this game.
Yeah, I'm not gonna, looking at your position, I'm not sure if the gains you get by stabbing America are worth losing that ally, when you're probably still gonna gain one center this year anyways. Might have been better to stick by him, but at the same time, America's gonna be forced to make disbands anyways because he's losing the specific islands, so.
Yeah, I think my position was always going to be a little bit difficult here because of the fact that Peru is still attacking me and is going to keep attacking me for the rest of the game, probably.
Yeah.
Almost no matter what I do, unless the conflict in South America itself turns against him for some reason.
Yeah.
But, going after the United States, arguably not my best move here. And, we'll see if this bold strategy pays off for me.
Yes, we will.
Whereas, sorry?
Yeah, I was going to go back to Europe now. Yes, in Europe, you can tell I'm being stabbed by Germany now as well, of course. Apart from that, I am fighting with some level of tactical flair to see what I can manage to hold on to. But I will inevitably lose Riga this year, regardless of what I do, unless they make some blunder in the spring, which they did not. And I am, let me look a little closer to the screen. And I'm just making common defensive tactics against Romania and getting, actually tried to support myself into Minsk to see if Red Russia would make a tactical blunder, but he did not, unfortunately.
I have to say, this game is reminding me far more than I would like of World War II.
Yeah, it looks like I'm not going to have a very good time. Maybe it was a bit of foreshadowing with that when I was talking about what I did earlier, what I was doing earlier, when I regretted my decision to work with the Germans and the Soviets. Actually, I think this past build season might have been the one where White Russia NMR'd on builds.
I think you're right.
Yeah, he NMR'd on builds as well. So that was not very good for me, because if he had built any extra units in his European possessions, he may have been able to resist the Red Russian sap of him that was currently underway with the convoy of Russia, an army into Baku.
Good observing there. Yeah, it was a very bad moment for White Russia to make this mistake. Not that there's ever a good moment to NMR, but White Russia is particularly vulnerable, given that Red Russia has gotten so big and so strong so quickly, and the fact that White Russia has kind of outlived most of his usefulness. I mean, Persia is already on its last legs, and White Russia can't really do much to help Red Russia against anyone else except for Romania. But Red Russia seems to be on very good terms with Romania.
Yeah, they reconciled at this point.
Yeah.
I think that, in general, the alliance of Red Russia, White Russia greatly benefits Red Russia and moderately benefits White Russia.
I agree.
Where one of the issues earlier in the game was that when I had tried to talk to White Russia to see if he'd be willing to go and just kill Red Russia right off the bat, I didn't really get much of a response from him. I think it was like a word maximum, and like a day after I sent it, which was part of the reason why I tried to be friends with Red Russia instead, who was much more active in press.
Yeah.
And
he was also not very active in my experience when I was trying to talk to him.
Yeah. Unfortunate.
Very unfortunate. And I agree, for White Russia in this game, the strategy tip should be better dead than red.
Great line for White Russia. Or else they may end up as they did in history.
That's true. It's amazing how many civil wars have ended that way in history.
Yeah.
I mean, the Chinese Civil War too. In their case, they actually did work with the other side, and they shouldn't have.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up my cons, actually, because there's interesting things going on next season, I believe.
Okay.
Let's see based on my moves.
Looking down to Africa, I think the interesting thing that's going on now is that Germany seems to be expanding in all directions. He's attacking France, and at the same time attacking. Looks like he's attacking Italy as well, while Italy is attacking Britain. So it looks like Germany and Britain are working together, because Germany now attacking France, who Britain just attacked, and at the same time, Italy keeping Britain from being too secure in Africa.
Yeah.
So it's a very good situation if you're Germany.
Yeah, he gets to expand nearly uncontested on all fronts at this point. So, certainly a good moment for him.
Absolutely. It's a very good place to be in any game of diplomacy.
Yes.
Well, I don't think there's too much else to talk about in this season. Going to the next spring, we see that, or actually this is the fall, we see that I am continuing my attack on the United States, ill-advised though it may be. The die is cast. We are going forward, full steam ahead. I am going to reconquer the lost Mexican-American territories. I am taking back Los Angeles, and also I am taking the Louisiana Purchase back. So I will at least, if I die, I at least do my ancestors proud by reclaiming some of our ancestral lands.
Reclaiming what was once New Spain, as it were.
Exactly. But yes, I am making my ancient Aztec ancestors who used to rule these lands proud. Unfortunately, at the same time, I'm still being very firmly attacked by Peru, and Britain is also attacking me, even though I was trying to work with him. So I'm just. This is the part of the game where I'm fighting everybody, and everyone is angry at me. I don't know what I did to make everyone unhappy. I wish I could undo it.
Just a little bit of stabbing, nothing major.
That's a little stabbing between friends.
Exactly.
They're just so persuasive. They're all just so persuasive.
Yeah, you don't say.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. Same time, South America, we see that Argentina still trying to do the thing where he fights both of his neighbors in South America. And
Britain.
Yeah, and Britain. And Britain, oh my gosh.
He's taking after you.
I'm not going to claim any credit for any advice I may or may not have given him.
Well, if it works, it works.
Well, conversely,
not going very well for me in Europe at this point. This is where I am making moves to just preserve as many centers as possible, which involves moving to Warsaw, moving from Lviv into Krakow, which actually preserves both of those centers, luckily, for me at least. I'm losing Riga. I think I'm losing, I believe I am losing Budapest in this position, and I'm losing Prague, so I'm going to be down to 3 centers unless I held one of those other ones. Actually, I think I held Budapest here. The
sad thing is, you didn't even really do anything to tick off the other powers like I did.
I only attacked Romania and Sweden. I didn't attack Russia or Germany.
Barely even touched Romania. I don't know what they're complaining about.
Just moved armies to the border, this land is my land.
I'm sure it all had a perfectly reasonable explanation.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Elsewhere, Red Russia gets to grow a lot, not just by eating up my centers, but also eating up White Russia's centers.
Yum, yum.
And Persia's centers, I think, right? Actually, no, he does not get. Does he?
Oh. He
does get a Persian center.
One Persian center, yes.
Yep.
At the same time, he is losing the center he just vacated to Saudi Arabia.
Good catch. Yeah, that's an interesting convoy.
Yeah, it's a very interesting convoy. Kind of suggests that he knew that Red Russia was going to vacate.
Yes, and I think we might have missed it, but last year London fell to the Dutch. So the Dutch, for a brief time, were in possession of London and Paris.
Wow.
But none of the Netherlands.
This is the high point of Dutch influence in this game, folks.
Yep. Being moderately annoying. See, fortunately for them, they can build fleets and escape to go live in exile. I cannot do that. I am stuck in my box.
Well, I think Dutch is going to die in exile, but I will say that being stuck in your box is worse.
Yeah, moderately.
For sure. But another power, unfortunately losing a lot of ground now, White Russia.
Yep.
White Russia is starting to get invaded by Japan.
Who could have seen this one coming?
Nobody until after they missed those builds, honestly. That might have changed the whole trajectory of the game.
Yeah, that NMR was... I don't want to say the worst that any power could have had the whole game, but it's definitely up there.
Well, if they'd had really solid diplomacy with everybody, then missing builds one season wouldn't be fatal, but given that they had outlived their usefulness to Red Russia, they weren't communicating that much to most of the other people. I don't know. I think that it ended up being very impactful, taken as a whole.
A bad moment to NMR.
Yeah. And now we see that Japan and Britain are directly coordinating against the United States to get that last American dot in Southeast Asia.
Get them out of here, as they say.
Yeah. We see that somehow, or not somehow, we see that despite losing this center to Peru, I still managed to get a build in my Yucatan region because I was able to nourish myself on those tasty United States centers that were left open to me because United States decided to trust me.
Yep.
And even though my decision to attack him and stab him for all I was worth may have been short-sighted and might ultimately lead to some unfortunate, unforeseeable consequences in the future, for now, it keeps me in the fight against Britain and Peru.
Yes.
So ultimately, it's possibly even good for the United States, because he wasn't going to be able to build a fleet in Yucatan to go after Britain with.
Mm.
I should have told him that. I should have persuaded him with that logic.
And, what was it? Infallible.
Thank you. I try. At the same time, Peru building an army, clearly more concerned about South American affairs right now, getting overconfident about his fortunes against me, I think. Actually, no, he builds a fleet on his island here as well.
Well, we'll just say he's getting overconfident.
We can say it. It doesn't have to be true.
Yeah, exactly.
And Brazil has 2 destroys now. Finally, that whole being under attack thing without having ever gained many builds starting to come back to bite him.
Yep. Although he disbanded 2 armies in its mainland, when I can see he has a fleet in the North Atlantic that he just decided to keep.
Brazil made a lot of unusual decisions throughout this game.
Yes.
A lot of strange, frequently difficult to understand decisions.
Well, I am sure that disbanding his armies in his mainland will not lead to his neighbors invading him.
Well, I'm glad you agree.
As we all know, weakness is responded to with compassion in the game of diplomacy.
It's wonderful how good and kind we are in this game.
Yes.
Anything noteworthy on your side?
I disband the units that will not be helpful in the defense of Poland. And I keep my units in Pressburg, Lviv, and Warsaw compact. And the goal at this point is to be enough of a nuisance that I can talk my neighbors into fighting each other. Whether that be all of them fighting all of each other or 3 of them killing one of the others, we'll see.
That's a good goal. And I feel it's worth noting before we move on to the next season, this is the moment when what was Germany transitions and becomes the Holy Roman Empire, hence the change in color to all of his units and centers.
Orange.
Got to give the GM some credit for being willing to do that. It's kind of it's a cool look, although albeit that the units are a lot less distinguishable from the Dutch units now.
But the Dutch are pretty much gone anyways.
Yeah, but fortunately the Dutch are pretty much gone anyways. They might be completely gone, actually.
Nope, they still exist somewhere, right?
Yeah, they do. They have a dot. Or is this their dot? Or
maybe they don't have a dot. Maybe they're just dead.
Yeah, I think they're dead.
Yeah, they're dead.
This is a Dutch fatality, and now that they're gone, their color can be basically appropriated by the Holy Roman Empire.
Let it be known that despite all of our mistakes, the Poles were not the first one to be eliminated.
No one would expect you to be the first to be eliminated, King of Poland.
Just sit in my corner and cry.
Could be much worse. Could be the Netherlands.
True. Could be Dutch.
Yeah. All right. So now we see that. This is the season I NMR'd. How embarrassing.
Yep.
So I don't have too much to say about this season. I wasn't super active with the diplomacy, but the main issue was that I didn't know what to do because I thought I was going to be attacked by everyone, and therefore I didn't know what direction to go in. And at a certain point, the time to make a decision about that ran out.
Yeah.
And it turned out that I was correct. I was being attacked by everyone. Britain supports United States against me, which is very bad. It's a very bad place for me to be because they were the only people who were attacking me who were hostile to each other, who I might have been able to twist against each other. So now everyone just, for some reason, agreed that they don't want Mexico around anymore.
Not a good spot to be in.
No, and at this rate, they're not going to have Mexico to kick around anymore. So that's all happening. At the same time, we have Peru continuing to try and move north to be able to attack me, and Brazil moving into Peruvian territory while Peru moves into Brazilian territory and Argentina moves into Peruvian territory. So Peru, in my opinion, really ought to be focusing more on South America, less on me. Just a just a thought, constructive feedback if the Peruvian player happens to watch this.
Being attacked by both of your land-based neighbors might be a good time to defend yourself.
Pro tips. Going to Europe. What's going on here?
So at this point, between builds and moves, I got an offer from Romania that basically said, me and Red Russia and Sweden, so it comes from Romania, of course, Romania, Red Russia, Sweden, they want to attack Germany, and they're willing to push me west in front of the tide of the alliance, and allow me to retain myself with 3 units in Central Europe. And this was the best offer I was going to get, so I took it, of course. And I started cooperating eagerly. Because what else is a man to do?
When you make an offer they can't refuse, or when they make you an offer you can't refuse, you don't refuse.
Yep.
Very simple. And I understand where you're coming from, and where your head's at, and to be honest, I think that they should probably keep their deal with you. We will see if that actually happens.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I think that they should be willing to use you as the tip of the spear against Germany, because, Holy Roman Empire, because the Holy Roman Empire is a massive threat now that's taking over Africa.
Yeah, they've got a lot.
Yeah, it's a big problem. Likely to get bigger and bigger. Like the Smiths in the Matrix taking over all the different people. Let's see what else is happening of relevance. It looks like Red Russia moving some units away from you, which could be good.
Mildly.
At the same time, Red Russia is trying to move against Britain, invading India. So, kind of a continuation of something we've already observed, with Persia and Britain fighting against Red Russia in the subcontinent region. Yep. And at the same time, Saudi Arabia also trying to expand through those same kind of areas, mostly into Persia.
And Portugal is getting his last center appropriated at this moment.
Well,
not Persia then. Portugal and Persia, actually. Right?
Very unfortunate for them.
Well, Persia still exists a little bit. Portugal will not for much longer.
No. It's weird. You guys all seem to have made everyone around you enemies too.
I wonder how that happened.
You weren't nearly as aggressive as I was. I was almost belligerent.
I was amicable to an extent. I was just playing Poland.
I was very unreasonable and also possibly not that nice. Which is very out of character for me. Just goes to show how this game can bring out the worst in us sometimes.
Indeed.
Elsewhere, we see that Japan continues the endless forward march and seems to be a little bit slowed down by United States and Britain working together here. So that could pose a small problem for Japan, because albeit that the United States isn't very large in this region, Britain does have some fleets and has some island stuff that could be annoying to deal with.
Yep.
So we will see how that goes for them. Going to the fall, we see that I am, again, taking more American territory because he makes the mistake of vacating Washington, and I walk right in.
Yep.
And so now I have officially fully reclaimed everything that could be considered a scrap of ancient Aztec or New Spanish territory within North America, albeit that some of my southern parts are being nibbled on by Peru, unfortunately.
What can you do?
What can you do? Sometimes defending is too hard, so you just have to attack whoever's in reach.
Yep.
I'm basically doing the same thing that you were theoretically doing, that you were going to be spearhead attacking into Holy Roman Empire, except for nobody made a deal with me. I'm just belligerently going like some person on meth and just going and charging in against United States, fists swinging.
Living up to the name of Florida Man.
Indeed. At the same time, we see that what's going on in South America looks like a mess, but I can tell you that there was some interesting stuff going on there at this point. with Britain looking fairly large and the fact that Britain and Holy Roman Empire were working together, what I was trying to do at this point was negotiate a peace in South America between the South American powers. You know how good I am at making peace.
Of course.
And I was trying to get all of them to sing Kumbaya together again and work together so that we could all, as a group, attack Britain. And I was also hoping that I could eventually get United States to join us and attack Britain as well, albeit the fact that this United States had only known aggression from me, and therefore might have no reason to ever trust me or work with me.
Oh, well.
But, every plan has its hiccups, its flaws that you have to try and overcome. The bottom line was I was trying to bring South America together. We were trying to form a Latin American alliance. I'm proud to have been the instigator of this attempt, albeit that the three South American powers were very disagreeable with each other. For some reason, they were holding some kind of grudge over
Wonder why.
stuff that happened in the distant past. And I wanted to get them to see forward, the brighter future, so I was kind of yelling at them and banging their heads together, trying to get them to see that ultimately the real threat is Britain, because that was the power that was closest to the solo, or to being the top of board, I believe, at this point, if not Holy Roman Empire, then Britain.
Yeah.
So that is what was going on in the Americas at this point. So looking to Europe, what's going on in your side of the world?
So here I am prosecuting my migration theory for the moment, pushing a bit further west this season and seeing how far the generosity of my attackers will get me.
There are worse things to try to do. I mean, the worst thing they can do is just kill you off, but they were going to do that anyway if you didn't move west, so...
Actually, I gotta examine this map a little closer. I thought this happened a year later, but it didn't. At this point, I requested to Romania to see if he could finagle his way into convincing his allies to allow me to keep one more of my centers, so I could have a 4-army block instead of 3. And when that didn't work, I reached out to Germany, or Holy Roman Empire at this point, and we decided, I convinced him to accept me back as an ally and go for the stab on my current enemies. I was pretty much just throwing a Hail Mary here. I wasn't going to be relevant with the migration plan anyways. I wouldn't be able to build any units. So, why not throw a Hail Mary, see if this move doesn't work out. But Romania and Red Russia were quite close to the chest with the move they were planning on making. So I wasn't able to get quite the level of intel I think I would have needed to make this work. But go for it regardless.
It's hard to get a lot of intel when you're basically a janissary.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's the position.
Yes, it was difficult to craft a message that said, I need information, but didn't also say, hello, I'm currently holding a knife behind your back.
I want to stab you. Need a little help? Would you mind jumping backwards, please?
Yeah, it just makes it a little bit eeasier for me,
I don't know if I have enough strength to get this all the way in.
Yeah. But when this maneuver failed, I was pretty much dead in the water. Just not much to be done.
No, that's true. That makes a lot of sense. Looking to the rest of the map, we see that Italy and Holy Roman Empire are fighting in Africa now, which means that Holy Roman Empire is about to conquer the Italian-controlled parts of Africa, probably, considering he's been on the amazing role he's been on so far. He also looks like he's going to potentially move to start taking some of those British-controlled parts of Africa, although that's not totally clear.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how he handles it.
Yeah. Elsewhere, the fight for control over the Indian subcontinent rages on, with Red Russia and Britain remaining at odds, and Britain also trying to expand south to control more of the subcontinent by taking that very last Portuguese center. Yep. Looking like Britain is also going to continue picking fights with France in that area. At the same time, White Russia fighting hard to try and keep Japan from conquering the entire eastern half of Asia. So we will see how well those efforts are rewarded.
Probably not very well.
Spoilers, but yes. And now in the build phase, we see that I again have builds, despite the fact that I am clearly, ultimately losing this war that I'm fighting with the world. And I put down 2 more fleets because that is what can maybe forestall my inevitable death to the many people who now want to kill me. So we will see how long I manage to put off the Reaper.
Well, you will put the Reaper off longer than I will. Because I have to disband another army.
And what was that? I can't tell.
I think I got murdered in the other phase.
Oh, I see. That makes sense.
Force disbanded.
Makes perfect sense. The GM of this game was very good about that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
On the bright side, a little bit of levity. Even while all this chaos is happening in South America, these people are trying to make peace, but still sort of at each other's throats. Brazil
Peru's building an army.
What?
Peru built an army.
Jesus Christ, Peru. Yeah. Argentina kept complaining to me that Peru was totally untrustworthy, and Peru kind of proved that. Every time any of us tried to make a deal with Peru, Peru would always betray it. Even though there were 2 different Peruvian players, and there was a replacement around this time, never changed. It's kind of
consistent.
Yeah, but the little bit of levity, Brazil managed to grab onto Iceland at some point.
I guess that's why he kept that North Atlantic fleet instead of defending his homeland.
Yeah, now that you see that, it makes a lot more sense, right?
Sure, yeah. Sense. That's what it makes. Sense.
Oh, don't try to reduce the logic of his brilliant decision-making. This is a master tactician.
Indeed.
Looking to the Middle East. I think what's most interesting here is that for a moment now, we've been seeing Saudi Arabia getting more aggressive, more expansionist, doing better about capturing more stuff, including one of the Indian subcontinent centers here.
Yep.
And now we see things are finally looking like Saudi Arabia is going to be quite formidable. This season, Saudi Arabia got 5 builds.
Yeah, 5 builds of Saudi Arabia is pretty good.
It's amazing. That's the best season he's had all game, probably the best season he will have all game. But It's a bright, shining moment in any case.
Better than what we are getting.
Oh yeah, better than what I've had at any point. Red Russia's still expanding, though, so still the power to beat in Asia, along with Japan. Albeit that Japan isn't getting much new this year, just the 1 additional fleet.
Yeah.
Looking to the following spring, we see that I am continuing to fight the entire world, and now, in addition to having brought Britain and the United States together as friends against me, I've also got the United States helping Peru to attack me.
You're just so good at creating friendships.
I am. Unfortunately, none of these groups of friends involve me, except for as their target. So it's just a missed connection,
Unfortunate moment.
Unfortunate moment.
Although America does decide to use all of its units on New Orleans.
Which, at this point, I was trying so hard to make peace with the United States. Florida Man Diplomacy viewers, you don't understand how hard I was trying to argue with the United States into making peace. I've been doing it for a couple of years now, and he just kept being kind of like unwilling to commit to an eternal friendship pact with me, and so I just kept on fighting him and kicking his rear. And at this point, I said, "Look, I'm going to give you back New Orleans. Then can we have peace?" I just want to stop the power that is too close, far too close, to winning, Great Britain.
Yep.
And I also want to stop the other leaders, but Britain is the power that's actually within our reach to attack.
Yeah.
So you just work with me against Britain and Japan to the extent that we're able to attack Japan as well. and I will be the most amicable neighbor you could imagine.
And which, look at that, Britain's moving an army into America right now.
Yeah. But, United States is very reluctant to trust me for some reason, and doesn't believe the warnings I'm giving him about Britain. And I should mention that there was a replacement United States. It was right around when I started attacking United States, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have any particular reason to trust me any more than the other United States did. But he should trust that our incentives are aligned right now.
Yeah.
That's an unfortunate thing I noticed about this game, was that it was impossible to ever get together a Stop the Leader alliance because people were just not willing to trust that aligned incentives would keep the group together. And I could, if you aren't willing to believe that having the same goals and benefiting from the same things will keep you together, I just don't know how else to motivate a coalition against the leaders of the board, because I can understand how you might get some benefit from working with them, but you'd be better off fighting them most of the time.
Yeah.
Especially while you have plenty of potential allies around it. I just couldn't find a lot of people who shared that vision. I think that I don't know. I don't know what it was. Yeah.
Tough in a game of like 20 plus people to look at the bigger picture.
I guess so. Certainly the number of players was a challenge, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Yeah. Going to Europe, what is happening here?
I believe this is about, I'm about to be stabbed by Holy Roman Empire, although Red Russia and Romania are still for now committed to fighting the HRE. I am not getting much in the way of communication from him, so there's not much for me to do except to sit here and pray for a miracle and to hold my cities.
You will have to tell me if a miracle comes, but,
Not looking very good.
Yeah. Mutual suspicion, I think, that the miracle is not going to come.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's too much change happening elsewhere on the map, other than, at this moment, Britain and Red Russia work together against Saudi Arabia, and so Britain switching sides again. See, Britain switches sides even more than I do. Why does it work so well for him?
Turns out being a bigger empire may need to give you more leverage. And it looks like Japan is about to drive the knife into Purple China.
It had to happen eventually.
Although Purple China is also driving the knife into him a bit, so... Or, wait, Japan's a her, I think, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, Japan is a her, so...
Purple China is attacking Japan as well. And indeed, one could argue that maybe Japan was deliberately bouncing White Russia out of Purple China, in which case Purple China is, making an unprovoked attack on Japan. One could argue that. It's probably not true, but
make arguments as you please.
I do every time. I do care about whether the arguments are true or false, though. I do. Interestingly, I remember around this time, I was trying very hard to create this coalition of the willing I mentioned. I was going beyond South America. I was going into other regions of the map. And the top concerns for me were Britain, Holy Roman Empire, and Japan. I've mentioned this before.
Yeah.
So I was trying very hard to get White Russia to keep fighting Japan, and White Russia was like, yeah, I'll do it, just as long as Red Russia doesn't attack me. And so, what is Red Russia going to do next?
Attack them, of course. What else?
It's like you're trying to herd cats here. They'll go in any direction but the one you want.
Very selfish. If you want them to get up and do something, they will lay on the couch in the sun and demand a belly rub. And if you want to have them lay down and be still, they will run in circles.
Yeah. Yeah, this is why I prefer dogs.
My dogs are very loud.
Well, there are pros and cons to everything, I suppose.
Yeah.
Look into the fall, we see that I continue to be under attack by just under attack.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I am beginning to, while retaining some parts of the United States, I'm beginning to lose parts of Mexico, which is a rather important region to me.
Yeah, it's a poor sign when you lose your home centers. Ask me how I know.
Indeed, sir. And for some reason, even White Russia is attacking me here. He tried to walk into Hawaii.
Oh, God.
What the heck? White Russia, you have other fish to fry. Don't go after me. And anyway, the United States has these open islands right here.
I can't believe he looked at the occupied island and he was like, I think that's the one that's for me, right?
It's a good target. Oh, man. On the other hand, I believe I am about to be attacked right here in these islands. Hard to tell because I can't be sure if there's a unit moving from across the map to there.
It would appear, perhaps, or was that maybe that's one of your units, actually?
Oh, maybe so. Maybe so. This might be the...
So it looks like if White Russia hadn't cut Hawaii, you would have landed in that Pacific island Peru has.
Ah, yes, that makes sense. Just more of my proactive self-defense efforts.
Of course.
Why White Russia wants to get in my way, I don't know. I've never done anything at all to provoke White Russia. Literally.
Just kind of tried to talk to him, and he was like, don't talk to me.
Yeah, this time I literally didn't do anything to this guy. But,
Well.
Sometimes people will attack you just because you're too charming, too nice, and too good-looking.
Indeed.
So in South America, we see that Argentina continues the war on both of his neighbors, and at the same time, Peru also appears to be trying to attack both of his neighbors. So
more of the same.
Yeah, this did not work out the way I wanted it to there, obviously. It's only to Britain's advantage if the three of them keep fighting each other. So,
yep.
Of course, that's what they're going to do, just to spite me. And in Europe, tell me about what's happening.
Yes, so in Europe, I am losing everything. I think do I keep Danzig here? I think I keep Danzig, but I lose Krakow because Romania and Russia finally coordinate their moves correctly. And so I am reduced down to my last center, right? Yes, my last center. Germany does not take Danzig, so I am alive. A little bit longer, I believe.
Staying alive.
Take a peek at the map at this point. I believe, yeah, I am alive still for another year. Look at that. Poland lives.
Congratulations. I believe it's at this point, roughly, that White Russia starts to become a janissary for Japan.
Yeah.
Mainly,
not much to be done.
Mainly owing to the fact that White Russia doesn't really have good options. No one's really trying to help them. Even though they are the shield against Japan and the person who is a stumbling block to a Japanese victory here.
Having played with the Japanese player a few times, I trust that she convinced White Russia that the only option really was to become a janissary for her.
Yeah, I think the Japanese player is rather charming.
Given the circumstances, I think it was a decent argument to make.
I think you're right. And we see that in addition to the other stuff we have mentioned going on before, that Japan is continuing to fight with Britain in those Pacific Islands, which just frankly kind of serves, even though it's not much fighting, it kind of serves as a rationalization, I think, for United States to continue trying to work with Britain, even though Britain's almost a board leader at this point. And if not actually the board leader at this point. And
yeah, I can check on that real quick.
Yeah.
Britain was the board leader by 15 centers.
Yeah. So even though Britain is the board leader, United States kind of repeatedly justifies continuing to work with Britain by saying, well, Britain's the one who's holding back Japan. Britain's not really able to do anything to Japan, but that's the justification, that's the argument, and it was like pulling teeth trying to argue with him. So
yeah,
I didn't do it too much. we see here that for the first time, possibly ever, I have to make destroys instead of builds, which is
I couldn't imagine.
Just wrong.
Yeah.
The glorious Aztec Empire should never have had the sun set on it. But now it looks like the sun is about to explode.
Yeah, not enough human sacrifice.
That was the problem.
Yep.
We should have been more devoted to our gods.
Indeed.
On the bright side, Brazil is in the same kind of boat as me, doing his own destroys in the south. But at least he has that.
Wait, he has Greenland.
I was going to say, actually, he does not have Iceland anymore.
He took Greenland instead.
Oh my god, he does. He has Greenland.
Yep. I did not have to disband any units here because my army was already destroyed. So, we take what we can get.
Exactly, yeah. Germany's hold over Africa looking more impressive by the season here. Albeit that Britain's still a very strong competitor in that region.
Yeah.
With Greece now beginning to be relevant in more of this sphere as well.
Yes. Actually, I need to check. So the Dutch actually hadn't died yet. I'm not sure where their fleet ended up in the interim.
Oh.
But they do have a center down in Mozambique.
They were only mostly dead.
Yeah, I'm not sure where they ended up, but there they are. So
very mysterious. Good for them.
They were alive. Yeah.
Staying alive. All right. Now, this spring, I was, this spring, I was not doing very much. I think I failed to enter orders again.
Yeah.
But on the bright side, so did Peru. So I didn't lose any more ground to him, but I was kicking myself because that meant I could have taken ground from him. I could have retaken this island in the Pacific he took from me, Onu.
Yeah.
So very unfortunate that I did not move boldly while I had the opportunity, did not strike while the iron was hot, although United States would have been cutting my support even if I had tried to attack Ono.
The United States also was getting stabbed by Britain.
And Japan. Japan taking the island. Yeah. So, United States really dropping the ball on fighting anyone who isn't me at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be fair to say.
Yeah.
And but that's how I felt about United States for some time. I'm very unimpressed by the way that they play this game, albeit that I made some serious mistakes. I think if others had been more flexible in the diplomacy, that we could have done some great things, and it's the fault of the people being inflexible more than the fault of the person who failed to persuade them. Albeit that that's a pretty self-serving line of reasoning.
A little bit, but as long as they believe, then it's fine.
Yeah. And anyway, if I'm not going to serve myself, who am I going to serve? Elsewhere, we see that Argentina is trying to take over what remains of Brazil.
Brazil's fleet in Greenland is moving to the south, so there's a good chance he might get a second center up there.
Well, it's always good to be able to make a new home when your old one isn't working out. So we can certainly hope for Brazil's sake.
Yeah.
So Brazil was never anything but cordial to me, by the way. Out of all these players, there was the Peruvian who barely communicated at all, the Argentinian who was all over the place until he was replaced by someone who barely communicated at all.
Yeah.
The Brazilian who didn't communicate enough, but at least was fairly logical and comprehensible when I was communicating with him, albeit that Argentina thought that he was nuts.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure I would trust Argentina's judgment of who's nuts and who's not, in any case.
Maybe not. And the United States, who for some reason held a long-standing grudge against me, despite all my overtures of friendship, and just wanted to see me wiped out and, pushed off the edge of the map into the sea, despite the fact that it went against his own interests to continue pursuing me with such vehemence.
Yeah.
But Brazil was okay.
I got my last unit destroyed here, and that was the end of the road for Poland, unfortunately. Although I was promised a Warsaw uprising in the last season by the GM, and unfortunately did not get delivered. And so Poland is lost.
Yeah. So the Soviet Union and that evil German Empire together have, along with Romania aiding and abetting them, have dissolved the great Polish state.
Indeed. And they have all made common cause at this point.
This is reminding me way too much of World War II.
Yeah, this is a bad situation to be Poland or Polish in.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And at the same time, we see the usual skirmishing over Africa still going on. Saudi Arabia continuing to try to, expand, but not really meeting with much success now because he's drawn the eye of both the Soviet Union as well as the Holy Roman Empire, and two of the largest powers.
It just doesn't go very well at that point.
Yeah, you're going to have a bad time.
Yep.
And Britain, meanwhile, trying to reconstitute the control that he once had of the Indian subcontinent, but looking very much reduced after all of the side switching and making enough enemies and not having very strong defense against Red Russia for a while there. Britain looking like he's maybe not gonna be able to parlay what he has into much greater gains.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Japan looking very strong, very healthy, continuing to benefit from the very aggrieved White Russia and continuing to expand with very little resistance through the entire East Asian region.
Indeed.
Good for them. Going to the fall, we see that I am, continuing to be unjustly persecuted by the United States, albeit that he can't really do anything to me this season that hurts very much. More importantly, I'm being attacked by Peru. And Peru is death. Death everywhere. Peru is helping United States to take Hawaii from me. Why United States would have an interest in taking Hawaii beyond me? You're being, interfered with by Japan. But he's also getting Aleutian Islands back from Japan here because I guess Japan wanted to keep the peace, and so she made a deal with the United States.
That way.
Yeah, otherwise USA would never get that space back, I don't think, because he just doesn't have the fleets, and Japan can fight that fight all day.
Britain goes back on the stab on America.
Yeah. I was really hoping that it was sincere so I could more easily get America to flip and join my side, but America wasn't even really talking much. I think America knew that this was just a feint, or hoped it was just a feint. I think it was a mistake by Britain, honestly, to take this back.
Yeah, I don't know why you would take it back in this position.
Yeah, because you're in a good place to start to take over the whole East Coast. The United States would only have New Orleans and
Atlanta, I think, is that what it is? Yeah.
The United States is very vulnerable right now, with me having taken over most of the West Coast, and with Japan in the Aleutian Islands temporarily, and with Peruvian units poised to swoop up and grab whatever's left on the West Coast. USA could have been very easily eliminated here. He's kind of lucky that Britain remains friendly-ish.
Yeah.
Looking to the south, we see that Peru is invading Brazil and Argentina is invading Brazil. So they finally united against the one enemy who never did anything to them, Brazil. Very sad state of affairs for Brazil, but at least South America will be settled, and the two of them can hopefully focus on more constructive things.
Well, hopefully, keyword.
It's always important to have hope, right?
Yeah, hope.
Hope springs eternal. Going to Europe, what is of interest here, would you say?
So speaking purely strategically, the Holy Roman Empire, Romania, and Red Russia are now allied, all working together. And at this point, Holy Roman Empire, Germany, is messaging me and trying to tell me that he understands that I'd be a little bit upset about the whole being stabbed twice thing, but that it shouldn't reduce my opinion of him as an ally. I'm saying being stabbed twice by you in one game will reduce my opinion of you as an ally going forward.
Sorry to have to tell you.
Yeah, and let me just read up the comms. Yep, he's like, I can be very, very vicious, and I'm like, I figured that one out. Thank you.
You gave me all the clues.
Yep. And he goes, I'm less of a liar than you probably think I am, and I'm saying that doesn't really make a difference in how I view what happened. It was an interesting conversation.
Uh-huh. That is interesting.
Yes.
Meanwhile, I have to say I had criticized Red Russia for being overly aggressive, particularly towards White Russia earlier, but this is the moment for me when I thought, wow, Red Russia really kind of, like, this overly aggressive playstyle really actually kind of paid off, because he's now taking over a lot of this Scandinavian territory. He's taking over a fair chunk of India. He's taking over a little bit of Romania here and Saudi Arabia. And maybe he's even going to be able to stop Japan on his own. So I'm thinking, wow, Red Russia has shown the real efficacy that pure selfishness and heedlessness of other people can actually have sometimes.
It helps when you start with one of the strongest positions in the game.
Very important to do that. That's the first step in the plan.
Yeah.
But I did think that was worth remarking upon. Not much else going on here that's any different from what we've discussed before. Here is the build phase. Not much to mention here. I lose another unit. Peru gets another fleet and another army, so Argentina, watch your back. And Britain is now floating in this Argentinian port. Elsewhere, Italy makes a destroy. Red Russia, as you'd expect, getting 5 new units.
Yeah.
There's all those places he's been attacking, and we will see if those end up availing him.
So White Russia ended up in Syria, but disbanded that unit here as well.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Wow, he got far away from his, well, not really, since he started over here. But he did get some interesting places, for sure.
Yeah.
Trying to survive. Here, what's going on with me is that I am being mercilessly crushed still by USA. And that's my fate for what remains of this game. At the same time, USA is moving to cut off any potential avenues for expansion into his territory by Britain, which I can certainly approve of at this point. And Argentina trying to push Britain out of South America. Unfortunately for him, Peru also taking this opportunity to try and attack Argentina.
Who could have seen that one coming?
I don't know. It's a tough one.
Meanwhile, in Europe, Sweden is going to die, is what it's looking like right now.
Oh yeah, Holy Roman Empire invading.
Yep. I am planning the Warsaw Uprising from underground. And other than that, the Triple Alliance between the Holy Roman Empire, Romania, and Red Russia is going pretty well.
What more could you ask for?
Yep.
And we will see if things change in the next couple of seasons. Mostly, it's just, from my perspective, it's mostly just people mopping me up altogether. I mean, the one good thing about being killed is just seeing how my demise brings people together against me.
In death, you're a unifier.
Always have been, really. And we can see that I am, despite the best efforts to squelch me out of existence, I am sneakily secreting myself away into the Aleutian Islands, so I will live on for another year.
Mm-hmm.
Elsewhere, we see that the Holy Roman Empire seems pretty much unstoppable in the regions that are relevant to him. Soviet Russia doing really well in the regions relevant to them, but Japan equally unstoppable and in basically a corner position to the extent that this map has corners.
Yeah.
So Japan probably the power to beat at this point if you had to start placing wagers. And we see that I destroy my unit here, so I can keep my unit here. And that's the last place I'm alive, sadly.
Yep. Soon you will join me in death.
Yes. But on the bright side, the whole map will not be that far behind me. So I'm getting surrounded here so that they can kill me off in the fall. And at the same time, Peru's still invading Argentina, trying to take over all of South America, which would be a laudable goal if not for the fact that there are other people who we could be fighting, Peru.
No. Come on.
Who are about to solo.
We must conquer South America first, and then we can worry about anything else.
Well, I guess it's important to have priorities, even if they're in entirely the wrong order.
Even if the priorities are awful.
I feel as if Europe is kind of grinding to a little bit of a slowdown here because of the fact that Romania, Holy Roman Empire, and Red Russia aren't really going to do much in the way of ever fighting each other.
Nope, they're in a triple alliance.
And there's not much else for them to do in terms of other places to go. So there's just Holy Roman Empire trying to continue to hold his own in Africa, while Britain does the same. There's the Soviet Union trying to expand into British-controlled territory in Asia, which is just a repeat of the effort they made before that started to get rolled back. And
it's a little deja vu here.
Yeah, it's a lot of deja vu. And we see Japan and the Soviet Union still fighting in eastern Russia.
Yep.
Fall season of the second to last year. We see that I am dislodged from the Aleutian Islands because the United States is still prioritizing killing me off above all else, which is flattering in a way. At the same time, Peru is, not doing as much against Argentina for some reason. We see these armies are moving north.
Yeah.
And I don't know what could have made Peru give up the pursuit or relax on the pursuit a little, except for that they must have made a deal, which Peru actually intends to keep, which would be a first for him.
Sure, that would be surprising.
Yeah. Peru being pretty much one of the board leaders at this point, I have to say his strategy of silent, brute force aggression without too much contemplation has actually been effective, just like Red Russia doing something sort of similar with more dialogue. But I do think Peru could have had a better game and possibly won if he had, at some earlier point, been willing to actually do something about the elephant in the room, that being Japan, who is, at this point, taking over almost the entire eastern half of Asia, as well as most of the islands around Asia. And so Japan, at this point, becoming power to beat.
Yeah, she's certainly having a wonderful time over there.
I'm envious. I mean, I wonder if I could do as well if I play Japan on this map.
Yeah, I'm aiming for at least something better than Poland and Portugal for my next run around on this map, as Portugal was my last Armistice diplomacy nation. But I did survive on that much at the end, at least mostly because stabs, a lot of stabs.
When other people are stabbing each other, that helps a lot.
Yep.
Well, there's not too much to report about this season. So we will go to the builds. Actually, we'll skip the builds. Builds aren't very interesting right now. We're going to the final year.
Yep.
And this is the moment we've all been waiting for. When the United States finally starts moving units over toward Japan.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Very long anticipated. And Peru even is moving a couple of units in that direction. And we have to hope it won't be too little too late.
Well,
the difference.
About that.
Well, about that indeed.
Yeah.
At the same time, Japan is showing no signs of slowing or stopping, just a machine continuing to push forward. And at this point, having taken over pretty much all of China, Japan seems almost unstoppable in her ambition to achieve the solo.
Yeah.
And at this point, we see that they're still trying to move to go and attack Japan. It's not very effective. It's not moving much very quickly, and Japan is fairly well defended as well.
It is logistically difficult to attack Japan.
Yeah, that it is. And somehow, without most of us realizing it, and also without Japan realizing it, according to statements that Japan has made, she actually takes over she takes over all of what she needs and solos at this point.
125% of the victory condition.
Yeah.
And the game is over.
The game is over. And this is the final map. Isn't it beautiful?
Well, unfortunately, I did not get my Warsaw Uprising in the end, so it's not as beautiful as it could have been, unfortunately.
That's true. I do like the fact that there are still a couple of patches of Mexican tinted territory, even if they are not centers.
I find it funny how some territories in Manchuria and around Vladivostok never got colored because Japan didn't have to fight White Russia to get units in there. She just got to walk on in.
That's true. That's true. Japan barely fought White Russia at all.
Yep.
Because Red Russia did a great job of turning White Russia against everyone else and making them work with Japan. Some takeaways for the audience, King.
If you are Poland, don't trust Germany. That works out poorly. The German player might not necessarily be very trustworthy.
If you are not the board leader, don't ignore the board leader getting stronger and stronger and closer to solo. In fact, don't ignore like the top 4 players or so, just so you can focus on your local petty grievances.
Exactly.
Coalitions. It's like this game isn't called Fight Your Neighbor, it's called Diplomacy or something.
I mean, I don't know. Fighting my neighbor is pretty tempting. I was thinking that bigger pictures are for nerds and that we should be focused on our petty little squabbles.
Another great lesson. we can also take that away if we wish to.
Yes.
Well, kudos to Japan. Congratulations to her on the victory. And hopefully the rest of us, mainly you and me, will do better next time.
Well, there is a certain little game called Revolution Diplomacy going on right now, so
guess we'll have to see how that goes.
Yes. Hopefully well.
Wish us luck, Florida Man Diplomacy fans. Thank you again for coming on, King of Prussia.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks for watching, Florida Man Diplomacy fans. And if you're extra thankful, you could also say thank you to our guest, King of Prussia, in the comments below. Undoubtedly, he will be watching this lengthy diplomacy commentary, not just because he himself is in it, but because he is one of my many wonderful patrons who are credited in the screen right now. If you want to join them and help contribute to the future growth of this channel, the link is in the video description. Till next time, Florida Man, out.